Welcome to Living the Smarter Science of Slim, where we provide a scientifically proven lifestyle for long-term health and fat loss by eating more and exercising less, but smarter.
Eat smarter, exercise smarter, live better. I am so ready for that.
Hey everyone, Jonathan Baylor back with another bonus Smarter Science of Slim podcast. Very excited about today's show because we have a wonderful, wonderful researcher, author, woman, entrepreneur, example. She is the author of Foodist, using real food and real science to lose weight without dieting. She is also the founder of the wildly popular website summertomato.com. Dr. Daria Rose, welcome to the show.
Hey, it's great to be here.
Daria, your message is one that resonates so deeply with me and so deeply with so many, as evidenced by your success. Can you tell me a bit about your core purpose and mission?
Yeah, absolutely. I am a youngish to middle-aged female, right? I'm just over 30, and like most women my age, I have spent the better part of my life on every diet under the sun, right? So I started really young. I grew up in Southern California. My mom had me. I mean, she was doing Slim Fast, so I started doing it for no reason. I just wanted to have milkshakes for breakfast. I was 11. And from that day forward, I was just doing all of them. I did low fat. I did low carb. I did at South Beach. I was running marathons at one point to burn extra calories while starving myself. And, basically it was a nightmare. So that was like one part of my life. And, I had my successes. I had my failures because I was always dieting. I wasn't like ever super overweight, but I was definitely significantly bigger than I am now, about 20, 25 pounds bigger than I am now. And I was miserable, absolutely miserable. I hated food. It was my nemesis because it caused me so much stress. And I was ready for a change. And at around the same time, or, throughout my life as well, I got into the science path where I was studying molecular biology. I went to UC Berkeley, and specifically I was emphasizing neuroscience and psychology. And I realized at a certain point, I ended up going to graduate school to do my PhD. And I realized at a certain point that I had enough training in science that I no longer had to read like Cosmo or, these like ridiculous diet books in order to understand how my body works, that I could actually go to the science myself, which is not trivial. The papers are not easy to read. You have to have an academic accreditation to like actually even look at them or without paying a fee. So, I started digging into the literature, and I found a couple things that at first really, really upset me. The first thing I found was that diets don't work, which, when you've been doing it for 15 years, it's like a major bummer. I was like, what? I've been doing this forever. And you're telling me that dieting actually it's worse than doesn't work. It actually predicts weight gain over time, which is really upsetting, but made a lot of sense when I stopped and thought about it in a non-emotional way. And then what I learned, what does work, and this was sort of a leap of faith for me to some extent. I learned that you should focus on health, and more important than any nutrient. Like I was looking for something where, okay, I cut out carbs, I cut out sugar, I count calories, something's going to work. But I was focused too narrowly on the micro, macro nutrients. And what seems to be much more important is like your overall patterns of food and, what you do every day. And when you think about it, it makes sense. But at the time, it just seemed so counterintuitive to me. I was just like, but I need to diet. I know I need to diet. And I thought if I started eating healthy, like eating breakfast, eating 3 meals a day, stuff I never, ever did before, that I would gain weight. But I didn't. I stopped eating packaged diet foods. I started focusing on real foods, started focusing on healthy foods in the sense of like vegetables, grains, beans, fish, stuff like that. And to my shock, two things happened. One, for the first time in my life, I lost weight effortlessly. I was eating more than I thought I was allowed to eat. I was cooking. I was doing all these weird things that I thought only, overweight people did. And I was losing weight, and it was amazing. The other thing I discovered was that when you eat this kind of food, so I grew up eating diet food, right? Have you had a Slim Fast? They taste disgusting. I mean, it's absolutely disgusting. The stuff I grew up basically eating this stuff. And I realized that real healthy food, like the real food that makes you lose weight, the stuff at the farmer's market and the stuff, in the produce aisle, is delicious. And that really threw me for a loop because I just expected it to be bad, because the vegetables I grew up eating were just soggy, generic, those super industrial iceberg lettuces and whatnot, pink tomatoes that are sort of mushy all year round. But when I started focusing on real food, then I suddenly started caring about the seasons, what's actually growing right now. And I realized that these were completely different foods and that they're amazing. And so I like had this epiphany. I was like, wait a minute, you can eat food you like and lose weight. Like the world needs to know this. So I started writing, and that's how that's how the website was born and eventually how the book was born.
Daria, it seems that the core message of health and then as a consequence, fitness and being comfortable with one's physical appearance is both simple and delicious, is a message that a lot of people would want to hear and to accept, yet we still continue to be told that health and fitness is complicated and that it should feel like a burden, right? Like it should feel like you're like you have to try. Why isn't the simplicity breaking through?
This is the key. This is the key. You hit the nail right on the head. I like it. I like talking to smart people. So we are told it's hard. We are told, and what does that mean, right? In your mind, psychologically, when you hear something's hard, that means you have to make effort. That means it requires willpower, right? That's the word we always come back to. If you fail, it's your fault. You didn't try hard enough. You need more willpower to make that happen. Turns out that philosophy that you need to work harder, that you need to use your willpower, and that you need to suffer in order to achieve your goals in health is completely, absolutely 100% backwards. You couldn't be more backwards. Here's why. Willpower is not something you can just turn on and off like a switch. It's a resource that can be exhausted like a muscle. When you think about a muscle, like it doesn't matter how strong you are, right? Like you can be lifting a 10-pound a dumbbell, and if you have to do it 1,000 times, your arm's gonna, stop working at some point because there's no amount, you just can't use it forever. Willpower works exactly the same way. And what's funny is that the muscle analogy works really well because they actually both require the same energy. The reason they deplete is because of blood sugar. So you think about it, right? Like we all are awesome in the morning. Do you wake up are you awesome when you wake up? You're like, I'm going to conquer the world, man. Like today is maybe you're a little groggy for a little while, but at least after your first cup of coffee, you're ready to go. You've got resolve. You're going to go to the gym. You're going to do all these things. But what happens to most people is, they realize they're sort of late for work. So they're rushing around. They're stressed out. The kids puked all over the place and they, have to clean that up and then take them to school. And then they're late for work and there's a meeting and their boss is upset about something. And then they kind of rush through lunch. By the time they get home from work, they're completely depleted. And more, it doesn't just take willpower. That willpower is depleted by any tough decisions you make during the day. So, what most people find is by the time they get home at night, they just don't have any more. And so crafting a difficult, healthy dinner that they never made from some recipe that they read in Cooking Light magazine just doesn't happen. They end up calling in for a pizza instead. But what's amazing is that this is predictable. We know how the brain works. We all do this every single day. We know it does not work. So then what is the answer, right? Why is this failing for everyone? What can we do instead? And what I've discovered, it's not a secret, but for some reason the whole diet world forgets to mention this, is that what you need to do is you need to stop relying on willpower. And the only way you can do that is to start working on building habits. Habits are magical. I'll explain why. Habits are magical because they actually don't require willpower. They happen automatically. All they need is a trigger. There's always some trigger that gets you to start acting in a certain way. And you don't have to think about it. You just go on autopilot. And your brain loves autopilot because it doesn't take any work. And then you do whatever you're going to do. The key to habits, though, you go, okay, I want to put my healthy eating on autopilot. That sounds great. The issue, though, is that habits don't form without a reward. And I'm not talking a reward like in 3 months you're going to fit into your jeans. It has to be an immediate, tangible, either physical or emotional or some sort of immediate reward for you. And if it's not there, it'll never form into a habit. What that means, and this is like, I think super profound, and it's something that like, I really like to slow down and stop and pause and really reflect on this. It means you have to like what you're doing. Like it means you have to enjoy the foods you eat if they're healthy. It means you have to enjoy your workout routines. It means, you know, if you try to do something you hate, it's just not going to stick, and you're wasting your time. You're wasting your willpower, and it's just going to end up in failure. So you're better off just starting with one little habit at a time and putting them on autopilot one at a time. And, you know, it's kind of like, you know, if you think about like your savings account, do you, you know, most of us, like what we do, have you ever tried to like not have a budget and just be like, okay, I'm going to like spend money and then see what's left over and I'll put that in savings? Have you ever tried that?
Yes.
Hello?
Oh, Daria. Yeah, yes, I have.
Sorry, I thought I lost you. Anyway, if you try to like say you're going to have enough willpower to like save money at the end of the month, you're never going to have any money left at the end of the month. So what you do is you automatically have it deducted, right? And it goes to like a special account, and then you're good for your like taxes or whatever. So it's the same idea. You want to put as many things as you can on autopilot. And then when the weekend comes and you've been healthy 85, 90% of the week, then you can eat whatever you want. You can eat, you know, if it's a cheesecake or a cupcake or whatever.
Daria, do you see that this is why one of the things I've always, well, not struggled to wrap my head around, but let's say actually admired is if you look at people who eat in a way that is not considered a diet, but is also not normal. For example, vegetarians. Like, it is not the typical diet is not a vegetarian diet, and for most people to think that they would never eat meat again would be very much a struggle and would very much require willpower. But for the vast majority of vegetarians I know, it's not like every day. It's not as if their willpower meter is getting depleted every time a steak passes in front of their nose. They just don't want it. So is that maybe an example of where we can make our minds go eventually, not so much for meat, but for these sickening edible products?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one good strategy. So, I mean, when I talk about habits, I'm mainly thinking about things like you wake up in the morning, you eat breakfast. Like, you don't think about it, you make it happy and enjoyable. I don't think that vegetarians necessarily enjoy passing up the meat. I think they have a conviction for a different reason. And this is something I recommend as well. I think when you establish a set of values that you associate with your identity, and if you can link those to food in some way, maybe where food comes from, maybe you care about the environment, so you want to have organic, or maybe, you know, you don't like the government subsidies that go to the industrial food chains, so you don't want to support that sort of corporate welfare, or whatever your pet cause is. I definitely highly recommend, there's good data. There's good data that shows that people who believe in their food for more than just, I want to be skinny, more than just, you know, I need to, you know, fix my cholesterol or whatever, something vague like that. If you actually believe something about your food and that it matters beyond you, something bigger than you, then sticking to it is not a problem. Not a problem at all. Like, think about, also there's like religious practices where you fast for 2 weeks or whatever. And it's the same thing. Like, those people don't cheat. It's because they believe what they're doing is like absolutely part of who they are. It's part of their identity. And they would never mess that up.
And Daria, some of the things you're saying, when we state them explicitly, they are so profound and so obvious. I don't mean obvious in a derogatory sense, but like the whole idea of, if it requires you gritting your teeth, it is not sustainable. I mean, it's a little bit like just saying, I'm just not going to go to the bathroom anymore. I'm just not going to sleep anymore. Like, you're going to lose. Like, you're not going to be able to be hungry for the rest of your life. And we all understand that on some level rationally, but it's not, it doesn't set in, right? There's that, maybe that emotional component. So how do we overcome that?
Absolutely. So the biggest issue for most people is getting started. Getting started is the hardest part on any new habit. You know, the distance is nothing, however far you have to go. It's that first step that's hard. So what I try to do for people, and what I have dozens and dozens of tips in Foodist and on Summer Tomato on my website of how to like make that big wall that's in front of you that makes it look really hard. You want to bring that wall down so it looks like something you could just step over. So it looks really short and small and easy and surmountable. So you just have to start small and get those small wins. And I think people dismiss that very easily out of hand. Like, well, then it doesn't seem worth it. But it's really the only way. And it's funny. And it's like, and my challenge to people is I dare you to do it. Like people say, I want to start running 3 times a week. It's like, okay, well, how much do you run now? It's like, well, 0. It's like, well, why don't you make your goal running 1 time a week? And then work your way up from there, And so I recommend people to start with eating breakfast. I recommend people start with generally eating more rules in general. Because if you think about cutting stuff out, that's not really fun. Like you're not going to, like those aren't really habits that are going to naturally sound fun and enjoyable to you. But eating more like vegetables that are in season from a good vendor, like spending a little bit more money maybe and getting something a little tastier but healthy. Start there, start with the things that are really easy for you, really fun for you. Like if you're eating a donut at work during your meeting, like every week you have a strategy meeting and you're eating a donut, try it, like bringing something else instead. Don't necessarily try to sit there and stare at the donut box and like wonder why, how soon this meeting is going to be over. I've had lots of people love Greek yogurt. It's like a great alternative. So you have something good there to have. And then when the donuts are, then you're actually not hungry anymore. Things like that.
Daria, why do you think in so many areas of life we explicitly want and desire simplicity? Like we don't want to even turn the key in our ignition. We want a button to turn our car on. We want keyless entry. We love the iPad because it's so simple and easy to use. We always want things to be simple, except when it comes to health and weight loss, where it actually seems like, to your point of people want this extreme thing or this pill, this really regimented program or this weird complicated, like calorie counting has got to be the single most complicated thing ever, right? I mean, it's like being diabetic with your blood sugar and you're trying to do that with calories. Like that's even more of a pain in the butt, but it's almost like we seek that out. It's almost like we want that complexity in this area of life. Why do you think that is?
I think we've been duped, honestly. I think that, people like to feel like they're basing their actions on sound science and, they want to get really into the nitty gritty because they think if they understand the details, then they can make it work for themselves. And I think that has been a trick that the dieting industry has used to confuse us and to sell us crap. And I know you know this. I love your video about how, people in the old days, people 40, 50 years ago, we did not have these problems. We did not need to count calories and, carbs, and we didn't have to take our yogurt and remove the fat from it in order to be thin and healthy. They were naturally thin and healthy without even trying. And I think that when you start to sort of look harder at the situation, you realize like the emperor has no clothes. Like all these magical formulas that are supposed to make us lose weight and be healthy, they don't work. So it's like, I understand, like I'm a scientist. I was really into this stuff, really hardcore. And it was scary for me to stop doing that and to start eating real food and just be that simple about it. It was totally scary. But so my challenge to people generally is just try it. It's like, it's a leap of faith, but if it doesn't work, if you're eating breakfast and, and it doesn't work, you can always go back to your grapefruits and cabbage soup and it's not going anywhere. So you really have nothing to lose than to just start small, the little things, do the easiest ones first, the low hanging fruit, and build from there. What I've found with people is that they'll pick one thing it's often exercise. Actually, they'll figure out a workout program that works for them. And they'll start realizing that they feel good after the first few weeks are hard. The first 3 weeks are really hard. Then they get in a routine and they enjoy it. And then they start realizing, hey, if I have to eat these fries with my burger, I'm like undoing like half my run this morning. And that starts to make them angry and that's what you want, right? You want to get to the point where you're like, give me the salad. I'll have the burger, but give me the salad so that, I don't have to work off an extra 200 calories tomorrow morning. And, you just build on those wins. You don't have to, not have to try to do it all at once. Just pick one thing, and tackle it for a couple of months and then move on from there.
Daria, certainly there is a wealth of information in addition to what we've talked about here up on your website, summertomato.com. Folks, if you haven't seen this website, please do check it out. It is just fabulously done, not only from a design perspective, but it is thrilling from a content perspective. And of course, in your book, Foodist, one of the things that you do cover, though, in your book, Foodist, which I wanted to touch on briefly because I know we're running out of time here, is your work around how to deflect criticisms. Because it's one thing, especially in the family environment, if we as individuals choose to make these choices, but often how we eat and how we live our lives affects those around us. So how do we deflect those criticisms when people start to give us those little negative jabs?
Yeah, we talked about when we were talking about habits, we talked about triggers and how little things can force you to react in a certain way. So when you're dealing with other people, one of the biggest and most common triggers that we use that influence people's perceptions of our actions is the language we use, the specific words we use to describe what we're doing. So if you're all holier than thou and I'm going to eat this because I'm going to be healthy and I'm going to lose weight and I'm going to do this and I, if you're talking like that and about how you're all self-righteous, you're going to turn people off. And similarly, because what they do is they feel judged. They're like, well, if you think that's so important, I'm not doing that. So, bite me or whatever. And so you want to be really careful with the words you use. Never imply a value to what you're doing. So never be like, I'm doing this because it's the right thing to do. Be like, it's an experience. I've been tired. I just want to see if this will help me get a little more energy. Make it look like it's personal and about you and not about them. Not about the general definition of the word good. Another thing to keep in mind is that, and there's data on this, I'm not making up this number, 90% of people, when they hear the word healthy, they automatically think two things about what they're about to eat. One, that it doesn't taste good, or it tastes worse than something that's not healthy. And two, that it's not very filling, has fewer calories, not very satisfying. Whether or not it does. So this is a problem because it means even if you are eating healthy food, it means you're going to think you can eat more later because you think you ate less than you really did. And sometimes the food's not even healthy, like Subway is a great example. They call it a health halo. It's like people think they're eating something healthy. It's got 300 more calories than a Big Mac. And then they go eat the cookie because they thought they were doing something good for themselves. But in terms of dealing with your family and friends, if you want to make some amazing food and share with them, which is the best way I've found to get people on your team, just don't, they know you're healthy. They can see you. They can, they see you, what you look like and what you're eating. But if you don't ever use the word healthy, just this tastes amazing. And you make them something really good and share with them and they can taste it for themselves. And you know what, this is amazing. And the word healthy just goes away and all they care about now is the tasty, tasty food.
I love it. I love it. Folks, her name is Daria Rose. She is the author of Foodist. Obviously, I could talk to you, Daria, for a day nonstop, but I know you're a busy woman. So I will wrap up here again, folks. The book is Foodist. It is fabulous. The website is summertomato.com. It is beautiful and insightful. And the woman who joined us today is Daria Rose, brilliant as well. Daria, what's next for you?
I'm just trying to figure that out. Right now I'm just trying to tell everybody I can about Foodist. I mean, I don't feel like there's anything more important to do than just drive this message home until the entire country stops dieting. So you guys are next.
Well, Daria, certainly I salute that effort and I'm joining you right there on the front line. So thank you for all that you do to help so many live so much better.
Thanks so much, Jonathan.
Folks, I hope you enjoyed today's conversation as much as I did. And please remember, this week and every week after, eat smarter, exercise smarter, and live better. Chat with you soon.
Wait, don't stop listening yet. If you like the podcast and if there's other ways we can help you, please join us in the Smarter Science of Slim support group, which is freely available at the Smarter Science of Slim website, smarterscienceofslim.com. There you'll find all kinds of free recipes and success stories and just all kinds of fun stuff like how to help your kids go sane and just great community content.
And just one last thing before you go, if you wouldn't mind heading over to iTunes and up onto Amazon.com and leaving us a review, and then going over to Facebook and liking us, we would hugely appreciate it.